My name is Timothy Shaw, and I will be talking to you today about Canvas app form formatting made easy. It's a little bit more of a tongue twister than I thought it would be. um, so I am going to have just these two slides here, and then we're going to spend a lot of time in app screens. So hopefully that will be fun. I work for a company called Macomber Well Service based out of Thermopolis, Wyoming. And basically, our company does servicing for oil and gas wells. So if you have seen the hit show Landman on Paramount Plus, I'm going to say we maybe have some different expectations of what the realities of the business is like if you've seen that show. But yeah, it's basically we service oil and gas wells in Wyoming, Montana, sometimes North Dakota, and we have worked in Colorado, but I don't think we've done that for a while. We also have two other companies that I provide technical service for, Optics LLC, which is our downhole tooling company, and then Wise Safety, which is our safety consulting and training company. My official title is Information Success Coordinator, and I kind of like to bring this up because it's basically a joke that I made up to have this title. Basically, my job duties, as I would define them, are that I need to get the right information to the right people at the right time in the right format. And that means everything IT related, but I really just was tired of being IT. And at the time, I was working in the office a lot. And when they hired me, they didn't have a place for me. So the only desk was the desk at the front entry. So not only was I building from scratch all of their IT things, forms, apps, all of that, doing hardware stuff as well, I was also the person that was greeting guests when they came in and triaging packages to where they needed to go and all that stuff. So I kind of made up this name as a joke, and it just kind of stuck. So I like to tell that story. I was a Power Apps super user from 2019 to 2020. Like Josh, I've also been working with Power Platform about since it started back in 2016. Actually still have one app in production that was made in the Windows 8 app, which is where you used to have to make apps before it was in the cloud. So there's one of those left. It's the most terrible app that you've ever seen, but we still use it. So, and some personal stuff about me. I enjoy music. I've been playing guitar for about 30 years, and I also enjoy some video games here and there. Mostly to hang out with my sister who lives in Texas. So that's the main thing, but also hanging out with some Power Platform people. So with that all out of the way, I'm going to welcome you to our asset management app. And this is the development version, but this is basically what we have in prod. I'm going to say right off the bat, I'm going to point this out. I'm glad that Anna Black is not here because I know that she's put out a bunch of things about consistency with icons, and I'm going to just call myself out. And you can see right here that we've got some very inconsistent things going on right here. I'm just going to say that the reason for that is because this app represented a joining of two different data sources, and I basically just kept the iconography that we had for both of those in this. What's awesome is that we actually have an intern that is working on the icons for this, and so we're going to have some amazing icons here in the near future. But for now, they look a little disjointed. So talking about Canvas apps and thinking about them, I wanted to start by just saying that apps are kind of a pretty basic thing. And generally, we have two different things that we're doing with them. Either we want to show information to people, or we want to act on some information. And so for showing, like this screen here, I mean, we've got things like galleries, we've got data visualizations, we've got different icons and things. You know, we can showcase weather up here and statistics, things like that. So there's lots of different ways to do that. We could do galleries. We could do a table. We could just ad hoc things together, or have a chart, have something like that. That's all pretty standard. When we want to act on data, that's usually something with a form. So we're going to go over here to our maintenance tasks, and we are going to add a maintenance task and just kind of showcasing this. So here is our form to add a maintenance task. And in Canvas apps, there are multiple ways to do this as well. There's the built-in form control, which is what I'm going to be talking about. You can also kind of ad hoc controls and then stick a save button in there and do a patch statement or something like that. And you can also use galleries to do like an infinity form sort of thing, which I believe Clarissa, I forget her last name, but kind of showcase that. So if anyone is familiar with her name, go ahead and put it in the chat and give her props. But I'm going to be talking about what I think is one of the most powerful ways to do it, which is just the built-in form control. And as you can see here, you could probably tell just by looking at this what items are required, at least I hope you can, and what items probably are not. And then you could also probably tell if this form is ready to be saved or not. Yes, Gillingham. Yes, that's the one. Thank you, Keith. Appreciate that. So if we just go in and kind of start entering some data, let's say that we're going to do a maintenance thing for a keyboard, like we want to clean keyboard. And let's just say we're going to vacuum and wipe down every week. Whoops. Well, typing around my mic here. Okay, and I'm not going to say it's pass fail. We do not need to send an email when complete. So you can see, like, as I'm entering things in, we can tell that those are entered, and we no longer need to worry about them. This is kind of just a formatting feature that we can do. You can do this with any form, really, but I'm going to be showing how you can make this pretty easy and kind of just use copy and paste to make this happen consistently every time. Another thing that's pretty cool about built-in forms is they have this feature where you can tell if a field is required or not, and you can make that a dynamic thing. So I just want to showcase that right here with this safety severity index. Now, this is something that we use internally to basically gauge how severe this maintenance task is in relation to both our business goals and safety goals. So there are kind of 4 stages here that we've got. And I'm going to choose the no severity to start. And you should notice something right here when I choose this, that the time interval and time unit type both become optional. And then the save button is suddenly active right here. And that's because it basically just sends a signal and say, hey, we don't need these things when this has no severity. If I go to low, then, hey, we've got these things back again, and we've got to fill those out. So we're going to say we need to do this every 7 days. And then there's some other fields down here that are optional as well. But right now, we've got a completely filled out form, and we can save that and go on with our day here. Things always take a little longer when you're on a call. So this is another feature that I kind of want to point out, is that not only do we have a way to enter things in a form, we also have a way to view things in a form. So it can kind of do a dual role as both being able to act on it and being able to view it. And that's kind of a nice feature to have because you can have one control that just handles all of that. So we've kind of done that. What I'm going to do now, just after showing this off, and I got to warn you, this one's in dark mode. So I'm going to flashbang you here because it's going to be in light mode in the editor here when I go to this. So just be prepared. Don't want to blind anyone, but that's considerably brighter. So let's kind of look at how we did some of these things just with the form in general. And this is just to give a little background on forms so that we're all kind of on the same page with those. And then we'll get into how to format these very easily. So in a form, we have a number of really cool things that are just built in. And to start at the top here, there are 3 different kind of actions that we have. We can tell the form what to do if submission succeeds, which is this on success. If the form is reset, we can have it do some action as well. And then if the submission fails, we can tell it what to do. This is really awesome. I'm a really big fan of this because this means that you don't have to think too much about how to implement this. You basically just use the built-in things. It's really nice. The other thing, and the way that we are getting this button to kind of become active or not is, let's see if I go to, am I already on it? Yeah, I'm on display mode. Basically in here, there are some features of the form that are unsaved. So if you do the form name .unsaved, that tells if there are any elements within your form that have not been saved yet. So data that has been changed from what it used to be. Or if it's new, just if it's got entries there. And then there's one called valid, which is the form name .valid. And that says, hey, is this a valid entry? Are all the things that we need there so that we can submit this form? So that has to do with if things are required, if it's proper data types and all of that. It's pretty good. Yeah. Oh, thank you for putting that in. Oh yeah. If I need to zoom in, go ahead and say that too. We could zoom in. Well, actually, I don't know if I can do it with text, but thank you for putting those screenshots. That's awesome. Yeah. So those are some things, again, just built into forms that are super cool, make it super easy to use. And I'm going to highlight one more, and that I need to go back to this. And there is a function that is called last submit. So it's the form name .last submit. And this thing is really cool because what it basically does is gives you access to the last record that was submitted by that form. So if you need to reference that in some way, you can see in this case, I'm storing it in a variable, which I use to basically keep this form up to date on what's going on in it. So just some really cool things that you don't have to do anything with, and they're just there, so you can use them. So I love that. And another easy thing about forms that's super great is that they are super easy to just set up aside from the formatting. And if you've ever formatted one of these forms, you know that it can be pretty heinous. So that is the thing that I want to directly address in this. So how did we get to kind of all of this and this very consistent view? It did not take hours of formatting, which is the old way that I used to do it. There is a trick that exists where if you change the orientation of the form and then change it back, like just basically do an undo, it will highlight all the things that exist in the form, and you can kind of click and choose things and then do like a bulk formatting of those. That kind of works, but it's still not great. It's still pretty slow, and it's prone to user error because if you click the wrong thing and unhighlight something, you have to basically do the trick to highlight them all again. So it's not super great. Otherwise, you basically have to go item by item and format everything, which is pretty rough. So the solution that I came up for with that was this. So we're going to switch to this guy. And this is my form formatting helper. And this is basically just one of those forms, and it's got a bunch of different fields in here. I'm going to show the data table. This is using Dataverse, but you really could do this with anything, any data source based on the data types. But I basically just created a table that has all of the data types that I want, and I named them very plainly so that it's pretty easy to tell, I hope, what is what. But so I've got a text field that is just text. I've got currency, which is currency, date time, decimal number. Distance is one I will hit on because this is just a decimal number, but there's something special about that. So you've got lookups and yes/no field. So basically any data type that I want to use, we make a table that houses that. And I made one record in there, basically just so I could have something to surface in there, so it's not just all blank. So from there, just made a table and added all of those fields that I wanted. And I went through one by one and formatted all these things, and even did some things like, say, in this currency, where I added a currency symbol that exists there. With this distance one, this is in feet and inches, so there's basically just a drop down for inches. For all of you guys that are on metric, you don't have to deal with this. Celebrate that fact in the chat, please, because it's just not awesome that we have to do base 12 stuff and then base 16 stuff and base 32 stuff. So being base 10 all the time, that's awesome. It deserves a thumbs up. So congrats to you guys that are all on metric. So basically just did a bunch of formatting on this. Now, here's the kicker. You can copy and paste these items into a form. So I'm going to show you that right now. We're going to make a new screen. Make a new screen and blank. And I'm going to just insert a form, not a new one though. That's one thing to note. I mainly deal with classic controls, and that is because underlying all of our apps is a pretty tight design system, and I can kind of show some of that and how that works if you guys want. The modern stuff does not really work so well with that. There is not the level of control that I kind of want and need in our design system. And also it does seem in the modern form control that the copy and paste method that I use does not work. You can paste things in, but basically the form item does not recognize it there. So there's some weird behavior. I'm not sure why that is or what that is, but it hasn't quite worked so far. So we'll put in an edit form, and we are going to connect this to our form formatting helpers, and we're just going to add 4 of the more interesting items in here. Yeah, that's a good thought. So some YAML magic. I'm not sure about that. If that would actually do the trick and connect them. That's a good thought, though. All right. So here we have just what you get when you do a normal form, and it's Power Apps there. Sure looks like Power Apps, right? So I'm going to start by just getting rid of a few of these. We're just going to keep date. Don't need that. And we'll keep text, and then I'll add in our lookup and our yes, no, because these have some interesting things when you're doing this. Okay, so we've got the items that we want. We're not going to worry about the formatting too much right now. We'll deal with that later, but here we are. So when you start with a form, you might notice this little lockup here. And if we go into advanced, there is this unlock to change properties. So these things are locked down by default. You can change a few things with formatting, but you cannot change anything that has to do with the data itself. So there's a couple ways to get around that. I mean, we can just click unlock, and then there it is to be edited. Now, something that is worth noting about this when you do it, you might see this right here and see that it changed to custom right here. So it treats it like it is a custom card, which is something that you can put in here. You can basically just add a custom item, which just puts a blank space for a field in there. And that's something that's very useful that we can talk about in just a minute. But that's good to know, because technically you can then come back in here and add the date field again. And so if you're maybe not paying attention, you could kind of see how you might get into a little trouble with this. So that's just one thing to be aware of. But now we've got this open, so we're going to go back to this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take all the things that are in here, and I'll explain what these are. But then we'll go back this screen, and we're going to paste that in. So we can do traditional copy and paste. We can also do the code copy and paste. That works very nicely. And I will say that there are some times when traditional copy and paste just doesn't seem to want to function. And so that's where that code copy and paste comes in great. It works just the same, pasted exactly the same. It's awesome. So you can see we're looking kind of gross here. We've got doubled up items. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete all of the old stuff. And here's one thing. This is why I wanted to do date in particular. For some reason, it always puts in the hour and minute fields, even for a date, like this, just a straight date, not a date time. So that's going to throw us some errors and some considerations here when we delete these that I want to show. But we're just going to delete all those guys. Now we're going to see an error message. So we're going to click on that. And this is going to be in the update field. And this is basically what it sets up to write the data to your table. And you can see that now all this stuff is broken because we deleted all this stuff there. But we really don't need hours and minutes, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to highlight this, copy the name, and we're going to put this guy here and dot selected date. And so that clears up that error. So what did we just do? Well, over here, if we look, there is this update field right here. And what this is that's basically the thing that says, hey, here's the data that you're going to write to that field, which is represented here by data field, to the table that's connected here. Now, I will say I wouldn't get too creative with trying to like ad hoc things and create your own stuff. There's probably a bit more trouble you could get into than good with doing that. So particularly this data field, just that we can leave alone. Once you make it, it's all good. So we've got our date field right in here. Now, we're going to use another example. And with this copy and paste method where we're not going to unlock the changes or unlock it for changes, and let's just see what happens here. So we're going to copy all of these, go back here. Now, if we try to paste, we get this message that says, hey, the data card is locked. So you got to unlock it to do anything. So we just simply click unlock and add. And boom, it's there. So all nice and good. Again, we are going to just delete things. And once again, we remap this control. Actually, we can just do that here. And we're done. So hopefully what you're picking up here is that basically we pre-format all the different data types that we want. And then when we make another form, we can use those things to really easily format that form just the way that we want it. It's going to fit with what we tell it to do. And there are some other things too that I want to showcase about that. But a couple things, I'm going to do these two first before we get there and kind of get into the nitty gritty of this. But just some things to look out for if you're doing this. Because there are some things to know. So we're going to start with the yes and no. So you'll notice that I have radio buttons here. Well, with the typical way that it does it, it treats that as a choice field because that's kind of what's going on in the background. So we've got a drop down there. Well, copy and paste this here. Now we have the control that we want because especially for, less than like 5 options, I think is kind of a good limit for that. You don't want to do a drop down and give them 2 clicks for that. That's just a good UI and UX thing. We want to make that pretty simple. So we've got this here. Now, we're using a different kind of control, but what's interesting is that the formatting is basically the same for this. So it's got that control.selected.value. Well, what's awesome is that a radio control uses that same format. So it's a good thing to swap in, which is kind of nice they did it that way. Now, because I am using the same logic for that same field, we didn't have any issues with me pasting this here. What would typically happen, though, is that this control is mapped to whatever data I set it up with in the template. So specifically that yes/no field. So we would get an error here in the items section. And so this is the thing that we would need to also update in addition to that update field, basically just pointing it to what the items should be in there. And lookups will be the same way, in that it's going to be tied to whatever is in your template. So if you try this out and get in there, this is where it's going to be. So with kind of that cut and paste out of the way, let's go back into this template and look at what's going on here. So this thing I did set up to basically give me the different views. And so we can see the edit view, which pulls in that one record that we have, so we can see what it looks like when you're entering data. And then we also have the view, which is just when you're viewing it. So there's a few tricks that I just want to showcase on how to do this and how to get a nicer look, particularly with this date one. So we're going to go back to new. And here we're showing the control, but I also have this date view field in here, which is just a text field. And the whole purpose of that is so that we get the right formatting that we want. So I should say with this method that it is not a way to like decrease the number of controls per se, but it's just a way to format things the way that you want it. So we'll go back to edit. We can see we're still in the control. With view, we are actually showing just that text in the way that we want it. So it's formatted exactly how we want it to be. So yeah, I've been chatting and talking to you guys a bit. We're really close to time. Are there any questions about this or any comments that I can speak to?
I don't have any questions, and I'm off camera right now because my internet and power went out, and then I'm working from mobile data right now because my Ethernet doesn't want to, be recognized by the machine. But copy pasta for YAML code, currently there is a bug with that specifically regarding forms.
Okay.
So just a heads up that if you are trying to go to a form and copy code and make some edits and then paste code back into your application, there will be things that have changed. There will be things that do not exist. Dates or date cards specifically, if you go in and you look at the data card itself for the code, to go view the code of the data card, it will look like nothing exists in there.
Interesting.
So when you go to copy the whole form code and paste it somewhere else, anything that is a date card will not show up in that YAML structure. So I spent the last 2 months, or a very significant portion of the last 2 months, pulling many hairs out of my head and throwing many teams messages angrily towards the PMs. What is going on? Why isn't this working? And what is happening with my data?
Yeah.
But they are aware of it. They are working on it. They did not realize that it was not behaving nicely. So just heads up, be careful with form controls and doing copy pasta of that YAML code. So I've even seen it where I've gone to paste all of the controls back into, like the form and all controls back into the canvas. And all of the controls are in reverse order.
Ooh, yeah.
So if you've got 70 form or data cards in there and you had them all in a very specific order, they're in the opposite order now.
Yeah, that's
So-
rough. So if I can interject one other thing
Yeah.
about using forms that does come up with that. If you do edit a form, like you have it established, you've already set everything up, ordered it the way that you want it, and then you come back later and add another field to that form, that can sometimes mess up what you did with the form as far as ordering goes. And it will also, over here on the left-hand side where all of your items are, your tree is here, these things will not always be in order. And I would say it's just a tip of advice is to not get too concerned about this order of things in forms, because you are going to spend a lot of time making that work if you have to make any changes to a form. And it's maybe better just to live with these being out of order in the end. So that'll be my last tip there. But thank you so much for the time. And yeah, if any questions or comments or thoughts on this, please send them my way.
I was just going to ask you on, we've got this new feature where you can drag the controls up and down. I wonder how that impacts on things with a form now.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. So why don't we just do that?
I don't know if
Oh,
it's
do that.
available. Yeah, maybe it's not. Maybe it's
Yeah.
in preview only.
So-
No,
I-
it's available in all environments, or at least it should be available in all environments. But it would be very interesting to see how that does affect the YAML code underneath, because the new YAML code structure is based on order. So the first thing that's in there is the first thing that, like, there's no more Z index. So I don't know if you had seen code before the new YAML structure, but YAML structures, like, what is it, YAML version 2.0, I think, which is what people are mostly used to if you've ever popped open an MS app file. Everything was in there with a Z index. They got rid of the Z index for the current future state of the YAML code. So as things appear, that is the order in which they will be layered. So if I could probably spend an hour and a half talking about this. I have been in it for a minute. But yeah, just know that the fact that you can drag and drop controls now on the tree view, that plays into the YAML ordering hierarchy as well.
Very interesting. Okay. I was going to point out too, you can do that from this view, where you go to the edit fields view in a form, and these you can drag and drop there. Again, it will destroy a lot of ordering and other things. It kind of hits reset on your column and layout, whatever is set up there. So if you have changed the placement of these in the XY sense, that can get a little funky doing it that way, but there's that too. So